Good afternoon. I'd like to call this meeting to order. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Treaty 1 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis Nation. My name is Carrie Linklater. I'm your chairperson today. To my immediate left is Robert Buss. My far left is Sammy Tapper. Our assessor today is Svetlana Schlevel, and she is joined by Merrick Froelich. Our admin secretary is Belen Rojo. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application. We will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that applicants or the assessor make at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparison of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the board. The board is appointed annually by council and is independent of it and the city administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board. If the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of Queen's Bench, if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the matters to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the order by registered mail as soon as possible. And as information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record.
With the Bible or not the Bible? Okay.
My name is Svetlana Schlevel. I'm Svet.
And you swear the evidence you represent is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you. Please state your full name.
Eric Froelich.
And you swear the evidence you represent is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Eric Froelich Smith.
And you swear the evidence you represent is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Smith.
Good afternoon.
Janine Schnevel. Whenever you are ready.
You know by order here.
And sir, yep, please proceed. And I just need the business assessment ID number to be read out. Thank you.
What?
She just wants you to go to this one.
Okay.
Yeah. So let me just go.
I don't know if it's in the same order. The first part to that.
22554 Portage.
Yes.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman and member of panel. First, I would like to present file 17-4875, assessment roll 2018, address 2554 Portage Avenue, business ID 51810, owner Birchwood Credit Solution West. The total annual rental value estimate $298,260. Total assessed area of premise 22,677 square feet, and overall ARV RV per square foot, $13.15. This property, 2554 Portridge Avenue, are located on corner Portridge and Murray. It's southeast corner. It's a car dealership. Before it was Mercedes-Benz, now Virtual Credit Solution. It's no subject lease. My rent comparables, I have two type of rent comparables. Typical car dealership has showroom with some office space and plus a service garage. So first my comparables, it's auto garage sale. I have, you can see 7 comparables. Latest lease started in 2009. Reported area per square feet from 4,000 close to 10,000 square feet. And reported rent per square foot, you can see numbers, but median came across $13.20. On my next page, you can see rental comparables. It's more for showroom, but that has some office space. I showed a big boxes retail. I have also 7 comparables. This latest lease started 2008. Lease term around 5-10 years. Reported area from 15,000 to around 100,000 square feet. You can see report rent per square foot. And by my media came across $17.50. Based on comparable, the assessment is fair and should be confirmed because you can see first comparables $13.20 and second comparables $17.50. Dealer carship should be something between, but our base rent only $11.01 and plus standard occupancy cost, it's $2.14. It's everything came around together overall per square foot $13.50 and total annual rental value $298,260. I recommend to confirm our access value.
Thank you. Do you have any questions?
I do, yes. I was thinking we could go through the comparables in this section and not do it again necessarily.
Sure.
So my first question, you had stated that there's no lease in place on the property?
I not consider it any lease
Okay,
on this
'cause
property.
there is an actual lease in place on the property. It's been reported to the city, certainly in the real property assessment appeal, and prior to that as well. It's $7.50 a square foot, struck in 2015. So the city wasn't aware of the lease rate on the property?
Usually car dealership owner operate.
Right, but in this case, it's
in
not.
this
It's an
lease
active.
not relevant because if you decide to rent some box, you just can look on my first comparables for auto.
Okay.
It will be more expensive
So,
compared to this beautiful dealership.
so backing up, are you aware of the ownership of this property and whether the tenant that we're dealing with here today is connected with that ownership?
It's usually connected.
I want to be more friendly about this, as this is
I
maybe
didn't-
your first
I
round.
didn't
so-
company search it in time. What
Okay,
I
fair
heard.
enough. So,
Okay, initially, before 2015, before the Mercedes dealership left, it was a land lease on this property. So because I haven't done a lot of research on this property, so the $7.50 is not indicative of market conditions for retail office space and for vehicle service garages. So the comparables that Svetlana has shown here today are as more indicative of market conditions.
So let's-
So one market rent and one income and expense mailer does not make market conditions.
let's back up to the question that I was asking. So
Okay.
the ownership of the property is not connected in any fashion to Birchwood Credit Solutions West, correct?
It's my understanding there was a lease in place beforehand. I don't know the current status of the relationship right now with regards to the tenant and the owner.
So the lease in place as of the valuation date of April 1, 2016, struck in 2015, was the $7.50 a square foot, and it was an arm's length transaction.
Good, but one lease doesn't make
No.
market condition.
And I'm not saying that it does, but it is the lease that's in place on the subject property. You have that information now?
She doesn't have that information here.
Okay. I would just point out that it's been presented to the board numerous times. It's in the public record, it's out there. Looking at the rental comparables that are presented here. So the first page is auto-related. I'm looking at the size of these. We're looking between 4,800 and 9,500 roughly, with the majority in and around 4,000 to 5,000. Is that correct? And the subject is over 22,000 in total, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
but this
So they would
subject
be
has half.
considerably smaller, and that would likely affect the rental rate, would it not?
Yeah. But from my estimation, we have only 8,000 area of showroom. So rest of them, half of them, it will be garage sale, around 10,000.
Well, if we deduct 8,000 from 22, we're still looking at 14,000, which would be considerably greater than the high end of 9,000 and the
It's
majority
best
of
comparables
5,000,
what
correct?
I found, because most of them garage service, owner occupied it also, or rent for land lease.
So, looking at the first one, 1037 Springfield Road, that is auto check. Is the city aware that the reported rent there is a gross number, and that the actual net rent is considerably lower? It's in the $6 to $7 range?
They reported to us net lease.
Okay, I represent that client, and I'm aware that the actual net, as reported again at the board revision in this cycle, is in the $6 to $7 per square foot range once deductions are made. Similarly, 3570 Portage Avenue, that's Boyd Auto Body, correct? And they are also in on a somewhat gross lease, and their actual net rent there is $10 per square foot.
They reported net lease.
Again, this information is in the public record and is available to
Sorry.
the town.
What public record? I have
Sorry.
records.
Excuse me for a moment, Mr. Smith, sorry. Could you present that information when you do your presentation?
Certainly.
Thank you, just to expedite
Sure.
things.
Sure, so I'll run through these in
Sure.
my
If you want to identify them,
discussion, I
that's
guess.
fine.
The comparables on the second page are all retail in nature, they're all big box, correct?
Yes.
We're looking at Best Buy, Canadian Tire, Old Navy, Staples perhaps, Brick or Marshalls or PetSmart, Sport Check,
Yes,
tenants of
it's
that
correct,
nature. They would be located in either power centers or in large retail malls with other supportive retail, is that correct?
It doesn't matter, it's just box.
Okay. Just box. Is the city aware of the zoning on the subject property?
No, I didn't dig it.
Okay. Zoning on the subject property is R1L, which is residential, single-family, large. Would any of these comparables be permissible under that current zoning?
No, I don't know.
Okay. And just a kind of a overall question, the properties that are in hearing today, have you had the opportunity to inspect them? And with workload, you probably haven't had that opportunity, but
I've
do
been
have
in
to
this
ask.
specific building because I moved Mercedes from here to Sturgeon, Kensington.
Okay, and the remainder of the properties?
Hmm?
And the remainder of the properties, the ones at the auto mall?
No,
Okay. Those are all of my questions, thank you.
Thank you. Sally?
You mentioned, I believe, 8,010 square feet of this area is the showroom, and the rest is, did you say
Yeah.
offices?
it's no, rest it's garage sale, garage repair.
Oh, okay, all right, thank you.
Because you can see in our standard occupancy cost, we have specific air conditioning
Right, I
applied
did notice that.
only on showroom
Right.
and we put area.
Okay, thank you. No, that's okay, thank you.
Mr. Vess?
So the comparables on page 2 are not necessarily auto related?
No, but it's showroom and the box for example, Hudson Bay Canada Tire, it's box.
Okay.
What's the best can find? Because most of car dealership just owner occupied, we don't have any information.
It's a combination of retail
Yeah,
space and
and
storage
if
space.
a car dealership decide to rent box, some square footage is what on market right now.
Okay. And the subject property is being leased, though the subject property isn't owner occupied, is that correct?
Yes. I can do more company search in future to be prepared for this type of question. I'm learning on my way.
Are the comparables on the first page, are any of them an auto dealership?
For example, Auto Check First, Springfield, Fontan Tire on 960 Pembina, Boyd Group on 3570 Portridge,
This question.
97 it's Minute Muffler, 340 Pembina Cal Tire Distributor, 1106 Chevrier Boulevard, it's Sovereign Car Starts Collision Center, and last property Frontier Subaru car dealer.
Frontier?
Subaru.
Subaru.
Oh, okay, so that is an actual.
2012, yeah, actually, look how much it's, $25.60. It's real lease, net lease.
That's all my questions.
And our base rent only $11. I find it's real reasonable.
Thank you.
So, this property is leased, and I'm sorry, does the city consider this an arm's length?
And because market showed different. $7 and can be a land lease. I didn't check this completely.
Okay,
Can you talk?
yes, of course. I didn't get the opportunity to look at the lease for this property. If Mr. Smith says that it's a good lease in place, I take Mr. Smith at full value at $7.50.
Okay.
Because by searching my comparables, I came across a lot of land lease, same amount, $7, $6.
Okay.
Okay.
Land net lease.
So my understanding, the Mercedes dealership was in here, and then they've now moved
That is
over
correct.
to Route 90. Do you know when they moved?
2000.
2014, yeah, 15. Because I
I
know
think,
them.
I had it on, actually, I had the Mercedes dealership on Realty Appeal. So I think the effective date was, I think, January 1st, 2017.
I put this new building in our system.
And for 16? Or what did you do?
This
When-
Mercedes, new
okay.
Mercedes,
Oh,
19.
So saying there's a factor in period. Between 2016 and 2017, they probably moved out. Well, Trevor says the lease was effective January 1st, 2015?
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
see, that seems,
2015.
I didn't say January 1,
Yeah.
it's in 2015.
In 2015. Okay, I just wanted to confirm that. And you're saying 8,000 is the showroom,
I have April 30th, 2016.
and about,
It's moved out.
I'm sorry?
April 30th, 2016.
Ah.
Mercedes moved out. Because it's my notes.
Okay. Sorry, so you had said 8,000 is the showroom, and so about 14 is the garage?
Yes,
So they're servicing their own vehicles, or
yes. Service garage.
is this new or used cars they're selling?
it's my understanding it's,
Next year.
I think it's mostly used cars that are being sold.
Okay.
And I think what happens is that the area is being used to prep and service the cars to get them cleaned up and set up. So the Birchwood Auto Group's a very large organization. I'm sure they're moving lots of inventory to different locations, so.
Yes.
And this isn't the only Birchwood Credit Solutions West. There's also one, I think, on Nairn. I know there used to be one on Salter.
Okay, so this is also associated with the Birchwood
Yep.
Group then? That's, I just wanted to confirm that. What is the year of this building?
This building was 1974. And
No,
start,
it's
because it was
okay.
built in parts.
The first part was built in 1963, and with all the, between 1963 and 2000.
Every time extra parts
So you
was
was-
built
was
on
this
those,
one?
yeah. Mhm.
Do you have an effective age on it?
1974.
Okay. And I'm sorry, did you say you had a chance to visit the,
Yes,
Such
because I
property?
moved Mercedes-Benz. I see. I was field assistant. I was moving business
oh,
from
so
one
you were there when,
location.
so you were there when it was the Mercedes-Benz? Okay. But I'm assuming there's a difference between it being a Mercedes-Benz and a,
Nothing changed, just signs.
I think the structure, of
Building,
I don't think there's been any significant upgrades to the building
No,
since
just
then.
signs
Yeah.
was changed, that's it. Because Mercedes-Benz did great renovation.
okay. And did you have a chance to look at any of your rent comparables?
No, just from our system.
Okay. And this is, I'm just curious, on your page 2 with your retail, are all of these, are any of your comparables dealerships?
No, it's just big boxes, retail boxes, but put inside
But,
Canadian Tire, Hudson Bay warehouses, Best Buy, Old Navy, Petland.
There's only a handful of owner-occupied, lease for car dealerships within the city of Winnipeg.
okay,
And sometimes they're like in older dated buildings as well.
And I try to
Okay.
look for retail warehouses more.
And because of the lack of data with regards to resale for owner, because the majority of the car dealerships are owner occupied, even with regards to the comparable that we have at 2537 Pembina Highway, this was initially a lease that had taken place, and then afterwards they had the option to purchase it, and then they did purchase it.
okay.
So that was the first one that we had at the time. There was conflicting information because we had received information, we did the necessary follow-up work for the income and expense mailer, and then we found out at a later time that it was actually sold, and it was a lease, and they had the option to purchase it, and they purchased it.
But it was sold 2007, that's why 17, that's why we.
And, sorry, just want to confirm, did you say you had on your page 2 of your comparisons, the Bay?
Yeah, the house, yeah. Hudson Bay.
Which
retail.
one is the Bay?
First.
For 810?
Mm-hmm. And second, Canadian Tire. Warehouse, Best Buy, warehouse, third comparables.
Okay.
And the department's position is that car dealerships that we have here, not so much with this one, but the other ones, they're retail hubs. So when people call them a power center, if people are looking to purchase vehicles, they're wanting to look at the Ford product, they want to look at the GM product, they may want to look at the Honda product. So, and essentially the auto dealerships are retail hubs, just like power centers are. They're just not as, broad-based. There aren't banks, there aren't retail, they're more narrowly focused.
Okay, I'm just looking at the square footage, which is, you know, the smallest one at 830 St. James is 15,000 square feet, and we're saying, you know, you're stating that the showroom is 8, so, I mean,
But
Anyway.
this, for comparables, it's 15, yeah, it's $20.
okay. That's all my questions.
But usually with when smaller space, we need to increase rent to match it, how market behave.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Smith, if you'd like to proceed with your presentation?
Thank you very much. What I might do, just to begin, follow on from your suggestion there, is just do a quick review of the comparables presented. I believe you probably had what the comparables are presented to you, but so we'll just very quickly go through that. So auto-related ones on the first page, as presented by the city, we're looking at Auto Check, then Fountain Tire, then Boyd Auto Body, Maxim, Muffler, Cal Tire, CarStar, and then a Subaru dealership on Pembina Highway. The second page of comparables is again retail. We're looking at the Bay, Canadian Tire, Best Buy, Old Navy, and then it was difficult to determine as their shopping centers, so
It's Petland.
1910 Petland, okay. So again, big boxes. The final one on that page on Kenaston is part of the Kenaston McGillivray Power Center conglomerate, so it's one of the Brick, Marshalls, PetSmart, SportCheck, tenants of that nature in the last one there, 31,000 square feet. So just quickly going through this, and I'll only point out the ones that that I was going to discuss. The 1037 Springfield on the first page, Auto Check. That is a gross lease number, and the actual net effective is between $6 and $7 per square foot, and I didn't know which comps the city had, so I didn't bring the actual information with me. I represent that particular client. 3570 Portage Avenue is a Boyd Auto Body. Again, gross lease, and the actual net there is $10 per square foot. Both of these have been presented in numerous hearings already and are part of public record. And same thing for the Subaru dealership, 2537 Pembina Highway. This has, again, been presented numerous times. Yes, it is an arm's length lease. No, it is not representative of a market lease rate, and the reason for that is motivations. The purchaser of or the tenant rather, and then future purchaser of that property was Jimmy Pattison Auto Group. They came into Winnipeg, and we're looking to acquire dealerships, and in order to acquire the Subaru dealership on Pembina Highway, the existing dealer had no need to sell. It's the Thompson family. I know them well and have had the actual discussion with the people involved from the ownership side, and they've confirmed what I'm saying. They had the upper hand, obviously, in dealings, so they said to Jimmy Pattison and his group that yes, we will essentially sell our dealership to you, but in order to do that, you need to rent it from us for 5 years at a well over market rate. And at the end of that term, we will give you an option to purchase, again, at an over-market rate. And under those conditions, we're willing to sell you the dealership, and that is what transacted. It's been confirmed, again, numerous times before this board, this cycle, not just by myself, but by other participants. I've had the discussion directly with the people involved. And so the $25.16 a square foot is not representative of a real market lease transaction because of the motivations and the finance, et cetera, behind that number. Looking at the second page and the comparables there, again, we're looking at retail power centers or large-scale strip malls in the Polo Park area, some little concentration on Pembina Highway, and then Kenaston and McGilvery. We're all familiar with those areas. They're packed with national and international brand retail tenancies. These tenancies gather in one area for a reason, for support of retail. It drives business for everybody. And the rents that they pay are indicative of that environment and the build-out that's required for those as well. And you can see that they're paying in $16 to $22 a square foot range. We're also looking at significantly larger areas than the retail area for a dealership, in that we're looking at 15 to 97,000 square feet for these national brands. And the other point that I would make is that most of these tenancies are tenancies where it's virtually all selling floor with minimal loading area, in that the product goes right out onto the floor and is stacked. If you look at a Canadian Tire, most of their product is on the floor itself. They don't need a lot of storage area, there's no service area, etc. So the majority of the floor is selling product out the door. You're going to drive more revenue by having most of the floor selling product like that. Now, that is the big box model. Obviously, that's not how auto dealers function. So we'll move into my presentation quickly. I'm just going to call your attention to my first submission, which is this one here, evidence submission. That represents all of the files today. It's not specific to 2554. It's probably the one that you've set aside. Just wait till everybody has that. So what I'm showing here is other decisions by the Board of Revision on business assessment appeals specific to automotive dealerships that were recently held. In each of these cases, the original appeal, the rental rate that the City of Winnipeg proposed was upheld. Following that, at the business assessment appeal, that decision was not followed, and the Board of Revision panel instituted a lower rental rate for each of the automotive dealers in question. And in this case, it happens to be that they were all given a $12 per square foot net rental rate across the board for the dealerships as shown. And all the documentation is there for you to have a look at. So that aside, we can move into 2554 Pembina. I don't disagree with characterizing the age of the building at 1974. It was originally built in 63 with additions, so 74 is probably roughly accurate. The subject itself shares the site with Part Source to its west. The property itself is owned by the owner that owns the hotel just to the east of this, the hotel site, and it has the hotel, the Part Source, and this subject building property on the same roll number. So the ownership is that group, and the subject property itself is on that roll and is merely a tenant. So there may be a division there between, by roll number, between the dealership and part source and the hotel, but that is what the ownership is. So discussing the rent, again, subject property is rented at $7.50 a square foot. It is an arm's length transaction. Birchwood has nothing to do with the ownership. For history's sake, this was the site of the very first Birchwood dealership in the city. Subsequently, they sold it, including the property to developers who did other things with the property, obviously. And now they've come full cycle. They came back. They had a need to put in a used auto dealer in West Winnipeg, and that's what they put in place here. The discussion regarding the moving of Mercedes-Benz down to the South Winnipeg area, this was not an ideal location for a dealership, and it certainly did impact sales for Mercedes for that reason. They'd been looking at moving for some time and finally pulled the trigger and found a site and moved to that as indicated earlier in the hearing. You'll notice that Birchwood or anybody else did not put a full line new dealership, new brand dealership in here. It is a used auto center, and that is again indicative of the location and the building itself and its ability to drive rent and what can be sold out of that location. So looking at zoning, as I mentioned, it's zoned R1L. This is residential single family large, which is highly unusual, but as indicated, you can't just go in and put in any of the retail uses that are put in, or for that matter, the ones that I'm presenting today. You would have to go to the city and get either a change in zoning or a conditional use, etc., to put your tenancy in there. One thing, a very important note for automobile dealerships is the land to plan area ratio. As the site area itself is part of a larger package, we don't have a breakdown where it's specifically shown areas for each tenancy. But roughly speaking, if you look at it and do the calculations, the land to plan area ratio is about 3 to 1. For modern dealerships, you're looking at a minimum of 8 to 1 for the purposes of storage of product to be sold for display, product that is customers' repairs as they come through the shop and their vehicles repaired. They need to be stored outside, as well as customer parking and employee parking as well. So 3 to 1 is very minimal, and for that reason you wouldn't see any full line dealership going into a location such as this. The description of the building is there for you on pages 1 and 2. Overall area is 22,677 square feet. This includes a mezzanine office area. I've included photos of the building at the rear of my report today. You can see some of the exteriors. Yes, they've put up new signage on the building. That's essentially it. The interior, you can see the front showroom area with a small side showroom area with a significantly lower roof area, as well as the mezzanine office located at the back, and then of course shop area at the rear. What I would point out to you For this particular property, I'll get you to flip to my page number 3. The site, as you can see, is quite restricted, so the Birchwood building or tenancy is on the left-hand side of the site. To the right of that is Part Source, so if you draw a line in between those two, you can see how restricted the actual parking and circulation on that site would be. And the photos actually show the circulation restrictions on the exterior as well. That probably covers it as far as the building itself goes. I should mention, access to the site is not ideal as you're coming west on Portage. There is one entry to the overall site, which is far to the right of Part Source there, so you have to circulate through the parking for Part Source in order to get over to the Birchwood site itself. Coming off of Moray Street heading north, you can enter right at the very rear of the site, which takes you into the kind of the back lane essentially of the area, and then you would from there proceed around to the front. So access is very restricted and not ideal. Moving on to valuation, we can probably go through these once. As indicated, there's very few arm's length transactions for leases for automobile dealerships in the city. The one that we have here today is essentially the only one that we're aware of that is arm's length. They're in at $7.50 a square foot. It is an older building, built in '63, rough age of 1974. A lot of lower ceiling area within it, so you do have a lower rental rate on this property itself. Now, other ones we'll deal with will be slightly different than that, obviously, newer, higher ceilings, etc. Looking at the valuation, so we have a situation where there's very few, if any, arm's length auto dealership transactions. So what is an automobile dealership? It's a showroom area at the front with some office for the employees, and then shop area at the back. And the rough division typically is 1/3 for showroom, roughly speaking, and 2/3 for the shop area at the rear of the building. So you have an automotive service area of 2/3 and showroom of roughly 1/3. And in this case, we're looking at about 8,000 square feet. So what I've attempted to do in order to frame a reasonable rental rate for the building is give you some showroom rates for similar uses in good locations in the city, and that would be my first 7 comparables. And following that, we've presented automotive uses and their actual net rental rates beyond that. So again, the first 7 are showroom spaces. So 400 Fort White Way, this has been brought up before. Is it in the city of Winnipeg? It is 1 foot outside of the city of Winnipeg, essentially. It's as you go down McGilvery past Costco and across the tracks, you pass Fort White, and there's a whole area of development happening there. On the north side is this new flex warehouse, high cube office retail type space. In there you have Enns Brothers. They're in for a 5-year term in space built in 2012, start date of 2013 at $11 a square foot. We have 400 Fort White Way again. The Sky Zone, if any of you have children, you've been there. It's a trampoline place, significantly larger area, 26,000 square feet. 10-year lease at $11.90 a square foot. 996 Lorimer. 996 Lorimer is located directly across the road from the new Mercedes-Benz dealership. It's a former straight industrial building that has been converted to quasi showroom retail / industrial space. Dynasty bathrooms, oh, pardon me, 996 Lorimer, that's 1290 Keniston I'm referring to. 996 Lorimer, my mistake, built in 2008, high cube flex warehouse office retail space in the, if you go to Keniston and Sterling Lion where IKEA is and you turn east, you can come to this just off of Keniston there. It's largely retail users that are in there. Dynasty bathrooms being one of them. Showroom space, 2016 lease at $13.10 a square foot. Much nicer build out, 5,000 square feet. Then we get into 1290 Keniston, directly across from the new Mercedes dealership on Keniston. Again, converted industrial showroom space. We have TransCanada Brewing and Lux Barbecue in there with showroom space. 2016 leases at 12 and 1250. Much better location than the subject property. Much better property and better build out. 1036 Waverly is an industrial building. It is older, well, 67, similar to the subject. 10 to 32,000 square feet. The floor show and super light are in there. And they have, their front area is all showroom with all of their products available and on display, and it's like walking into a retail store. 2014 and 16 leases, or 14 leases rather, $6.05 a square foot at that location. And they do have significant storage area in behind the showroom area. Beyond that, you can see who the tenancies are for the auto. We'll just quickly run through that. 410 Oak Point Highway, 8,800 square feet, Fountain Tire, at $11.18 a square foot. That is a Fountain Tire that's dedicated to the trucking industry. That's why it's located out there, and they pay a little bit higher rent for that. 2554 is subject, $7.50 a square foot. I would skip number 10. I won't place any reliance on that. It is a significantly larger. It is an auto retailer, but I don't convey that that's the same as the subjects today. East Side Collision, full auto repair, 2535 Inkster, 20,000 square feet, $8 per square foot, struck in 2011. 3570 Portage is Boyd Auto Body, 2014 lease, and their net rate following deductions is $10 per square foot. Following that, we have some older automotive dealer leases. Each of these, at the time frame as referenced in my chart, were arm's length transactions. Now, I recognize they're considerably older, but you can see the rental rates that those were in at in the $9 to $11 per square foot range. And I've done the research on ownership of both business and realty, and they were arm's length transactions as of the reference dates there. So if you look at my page number 7, we then have 3 auto collision places. Small one at the corner of Bison and Pembina is number 18, 2479 Pembina, $9.25 a square foot. Just beside that, there's a Boyd at 2405 Pembina, 12,000 square feet, $9.28 a square foot. I was unable to get the new lease rate on that, and in fact, it would be post-reference now that I look at it. Then we have Boyd at 120 King Edward as well, in at $7 a square foot. The start date, of course, being older in 2008. So the subject property has an existing lease in place at $7.50 a square foot. It is representative of the building that it's in, the site that it's located on, and we feel that it is appropriate for the subject. So we've used $7.50 as the rental rate. The expenses shown on page number 8 are identical to the cities, they are accurate. And our overall ARV comes to $218,680. And the addenda materials simply include photos of the property itself, and then I see that we mistakenly stapled a site plan for the Point West Auto Park at the back, which you can disregard in this case. I'm open for questions.
Nice.
Thank you.
Okay.
And do you have questions?
Yes, let's look on photos and applicant case.
She's asking you to look at
These
Mr.
photos,
Smith's brief.
yeah.
Sorry, which page?
Is that the page
It's
number?
not, it doesn't
No
have a page
pages.
number.
Okay.
You can see inside photos, beautiful photos, subject property.
Robert's on the right page.
You're near the back, okay.
Yeah.
It's in back, yeah.
All right, here we go.
Okay, yep.
You can see this space, it's this space for $7.50. Next page 2, you can see inside how it's beautiful building.
I'm sorry, Svetlana, you're saying,
On this,
you're stating the space is beautiful. I
yes,
just wanna have that
it's
clear.
it's more like $7.50 rent.
I don't mean to be a stickler, and correct me if you wish, of course, but are there questions involved with that, or are we just stating?
And just statement. And we can go back to comparables of my applicant.
Page 6?
Yes, it's page 6. And this table, 5 comparables really support my basic rent for this building. You can see first 11, second 11.90, third 13 cents, fourth $12. Fifth comparables $12.50. My basic rent 11.01 cents.
Okay,
Do you have some questions?
yeah, for sure. Your comparables, 4 and 5, are they restaurants?
No, they are not restaurants. Well,
No?
pardon me, Trans-Canada Brewing is a brewing company, it's mainly.
And Lex Barbecue? What's Lex Barbecue?
They sell barbecues
They are barbecues, okay,
and patio furniture and whatnot.
okay,
Yeah, it's a retail box.
yeah,
Costed $12.50.
okay. So why would you include a restaurant as a comparable to a
Well,
car dealer, retail car sales and a car dealership?
so you're, and I, with all due respect, as I certainly respect your abilities, it's not a restaurant, it's a brewing company. They brew their beer on site, and they have kind of a tap room where you can come and sample. So it is not a restaurant that we're looking at, it's a showroom type location in a considerably better location.
And so are you
to the
implying
subject.
that so what's the breakdown between manufacturing and restaurant in that building?
I didn't bring it today, but the showroom area is relatively small in comparison to the industrial.
Have you eaten there?
I've been there, but I haven't.
Exactly, so it's not, so are you saying that the manufacturing for the brewery is greater than the restaurant?
I don't have the breakdown for you
Okay.
today.
Well, I've been there as well, and I would disagree with that comment.
Have you been through both portions of the building? or
I've been
were
through
you
the
out here
retail
at the
space of the
front?
building, and so I'm confident when I was there that the manufacturing aspect of it wasn't the dominant aspect of
So
it.
the point of the comp is that there's a showroom area and industrial is the back. Would you agree with that?
If that's what you're saying, if they're manufacturing beer, yes. And so, but it's still $12.
It is. Again, the point being, location at Keniston where the new Mercedes is, right by the power centers, is considerably better than The subject location at 2554 Portage, and the other ones as we come to them at Point West.
Okay. And is 1036 Waverly, are those, both of those spaces retail spaces and storage, or are they just storage?
They're both retail and storage, so as you enter into the two tenancies that are shown there, they have showroom space for their products, and it's like entering into a retail space, and then they have the warehouse area at the rear.
Okay. And with comparable number 10 at 81,000 square feet.
I took that one out.
Okay, you did take that one? Okay. No problem, I didn't see that there. You had mentioned zoning as an issue. So do you think, what's the likelihood of residential, of it being zoned as R1, Res 1 residential moving forward? Do you think there's a huge desire from the city of Winnipeg's perspective to put residential homes in this location?
No, and that's not
So-
that's not the point, but let me answer your question.
Okay.
It's currently zoned as such, so in order to put any other occupancy in there that's not current, you would have to approach the city and get a conditional use and or change the zoning for the entire property, which is not the same as the property that's already zoned for
Or would that
commercial
be,
use.
would that be a huge
I'm not
hardship?
saying that there's costs involved for all of these things as well as time. So if you had the option of going into a space where you had to wait a considerable number of months in order to get either that approval or as a zoning change versus another where you could get started on your business right away, has an impact.
Okay. By any chance, you know what the rent is for the part source?
I do not.
Right beside it? Would it be $7.50?
I couldn't tell you what it is because I'm unaware of it.
Would it be six? Okay, thank you. No other questions?
Thank you. Sandy?
Is that zoning in place because of the hotel?
No, I didn't do the research on this, so I'm speaking off the top of my mind, but I imagine it's historical in nature. It wouldn't be the hotel, because R1L is single-family large, which is like 10,000 square foot plots for estate-type homes. So it's probably a leftover of zoning in the past.
You said the hotel and the part source and the dealership are all one parcel of land, it's one.
I think there may be a role division between the part source. The part source and the dealership are on one roll number, and don't quote me on this, but I believe the hotel is on a separate roll number, but the ownership entity is the same for all of it.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions.
Mr. Ross?
Did the Mercedes dealership own that property?
They did not.
They were leasing it just
They
like,
were.
we happen to know what they were paying. Were they paying the $750 that
They were.
they were?
I believe prior to
It
that,
was land lease.
it was a land lease prior to that, because I had it on appeal with Mr. Newfield on Colliers in the past, and I'm very confident that portion of it was a land lease aspect of it.
So,
Both,
Two.
it was land
Actually,
lease. I
And
have
actually,
information.
we have the mailer here.
Yeah.
It's land lease.
Actually, you
let's,
know what? Sorry,
Okay,
but we're interrupting.
okay,
Mr.
sorry,
Smith.
I apologize.
so it's been brought up, the land lease aspect of this, and yes, it is a land lease, but the lease is struck such that the tenant is entirely responsible for their building and any repairs, maintenance, reconstruction, anything to do with the building. So, yes, it's a land lease, but they are leasing the building effectively from the ownership. And the $750 is applied to the area of the building. The leased amount that's how it translates.
Okay, and you were, well, one more little question about the zoning. Does it affect the way they do business at all, having that zoning there?
In this case, no, because their use is the same as the prior one, so it doesn't affect them currently. But again, site-wise, if anything were to change, you would face that issue of having to go for a zoning change or a conditional use,
Yeah, I understand.
and the time involved.
Is the Mercedes dealership owned by Birchwood?
It is not.
You were making the case that Subaru, the Subaru comparison, I think the assessor's comparison, number 7, was not market value, it was high, and et cetera. Could the same case be made for the subject property of being not market value, it's low, out of range, as the Subaru is high out of range?
Well, no, and I'll explain why. So the Subaru dealership is all to do with motivation of the parties involved. And if you look at the definition of market value from the Appraisal Institute of Canada and others, it's such that neither party has additional motivations in whatever the transaction is. And in that transaction, the only way that they were able to obtain the dealership was to enter into a longish term lease, 5 years, at a well above market rental rate, which was recognized by the owner of the property, in order for them to sell them the dealership, essentially. And at the end of that term, they had the right to purchase the property again at an above market rate. So that's how the deal was struck, and that is not a market, any evidence of a normalized market rental rate or sale price.
Addison is a, say, formidable business operation. They have lots of other car dealerships. It's hard for me to understand the idea of them paying too much, but.
Sure, so let's explain that then. So if
But
you're
I think
coming
you just
to-
did.
Okay.
That's, would you agree that, there's a lot of, would you agree that car dealerships make their money in the back where they service cars, et cetera? Is that, I've been told that before, they don't make the money up front in the showroom, they make it.
Well, there's three, I guess, three revenue sources as you would see it. One is the sales of the autos themselves, obviously. Then you have financing of those vehicles, which is a significant line of revenue. And then you have the repair and maintenance of those vehicles in the shop. So there's three components to the business.
Does Birchwood repair cars there for people? If I buy a car there, I bring it back and have it repaired there and serviced, et cetera?
You can have your car serviced here, and kind of the more straightforward repairs, they do. This isn't a collision center, but they will do, all of the regular maintenance, et cetera, on site here. They have hoists, if you look at the photos, et cetera.
Of the cars that they sell, like people can bring them back.
Yes, or anybody can bring their car there if they wish.
On your comparables on page 6, there was a few of them, Fountain Tire, East Side Collision, Boyd Auto Body. Would those places have showrooms in the front, or anywhere near the size or the percentage that the subject has?
So, not of the same size. The Fountain Tire, the Oak Point one, again, that's essentially a truck tire center located on Oak Point, where all the trucking centers are.
Yes.
Relatively small front area. What were the other ones you mentioned?
East Side Collision, Boyd Auto Body.
Right, so they'd be similar, it's a customer service area when you walk in, and that's
Okay.
essentially it. With the supportive office area, of course.
Okay. Thank you, that's all my questions.
Mr. Smith, on page 6 of your brief, can you identify from 13 to 17 what the who the auto dealers are?
I can, and I wrote that. I wrote it down, and did I bring it with me, is the question. I've done this many times, and I see that I didn't bring it today. I can certainly do that. If you give me a minute or two, I can recall all of them, or check on all of them. 13 through 17?
Yeah.
Well, I know one of them is a Mazda dealership.
Sorry,
So-
I'll just
Sorry.
let Mr.
Let-
Smith.
Sorry.
So we have to be aware of the timeframes that are here. Typically, I have a automotive file that I bring that's about that big, that goes through all the ownership of
Right.
the tenants, etc. I do not have that with me today, but I can certainly tell you that each of these was arm's length leases as of the date that we're looking at. Now, the brands
Sorry,
that
can
are
I just,
there,
can I just say this then?
certainly.
Are there just a couple that you can just, I don't care if they're necessarily associated with which address, but if you can just name off some dealerships.
3700 Hyundai, or 3700 Portage is Hyundai.
Okay.
I believe it's 3636 Portage is the Ford dealership.
Yep.
In fact, it is the Ford dealership. 3680 is a used car center. At the time, it was, I cannot remember the fellow's name, but it was Mc something. It was a Scottish original name, and then the dealership was named after him. 3081 Portage, I will have to confirm, I believe 3081 Portage, I will have to check on that one. 300 Pembina is, may I have a moment?
The 300 Pembina was a Mazda dealership.
I've written them all down, I simply didn't bring it with
Sure.
me, and I apologize for that.
That lease was in 2006.
That's fine, I just
Yeah.
wanna know.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I didn't mean to omit those details. So, what it is now will not be what it was then. Currently, it's, in fact it is, it's Pembina Chrysler at that location on 300 Pembina. And 3081, again, I apologize for this oversight. 3081 Portage is currently Platinum Auto Sales. Now, that sparks my memory, so if you go back in time, the 3081 Portage was a used auto dealer as of January 2008. They were different name. They were in existence for 2 to 3 years, and then they went out of business, and the building was vacant for roughly 4 to 5 years, and then a new tenancy went in after the valuation date, which is now Platinum Auto Sales, which is used cars.
Okay. Can you tell me how long the Mercedes dealership was at that location of the subject property now?
Oh, I don't have that information, but I know they were there for some time.
Over 10 years?
I believe so, but I'd be speculating. Mr. Froelich might have that information for all of us.
My guess is there used to be they used to have GM cars there before the automobile was built there around 2003. So I think it was a GM dealership, so I'm thinking at least 15 years.
Right.
Because I think some of the car dealerships, because Automolos started building in 2002, 2003, Trevor?
99.
And then
99,
everybody
okay.
moved out
And then
west.
everyone moved out there. That's what I'm speculating, so
Right.
shortly after that.
Right.
Sorry for speaking out of turn before.
No, that's fine. Okay. Leave it with us. Sorry, and I'm not gonna, I'm gonna make a ruling here, I'm not gonna ask for a summation right now, because if we're dealing with all the same dealerships, we can have one at the end if anybody wishes. Mr. Smith, you indicated earlier that this was, the first one was gonna take a long time, I'm just wondering. if-
Yes.
Okay, so let's have one more and then we'll take a break after
Okay.
that.
This-
Everybody's in agreement with that?
This won't take a long time, other than there's a few different wrinkles which I'll run through relatively quickly. It depends on the questioning, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, whenever you're ready to proceed, Svetlana.
File number 17-4871. Address 10-3965 Portridge Avenue. Business ID 50692. Jaguar Land Rover Volvo of Winnipeg. The estimate annual rental value $259,980, with total area of premise 11,111 square feet, with overall rental value per square foot $15.19. This property located and the Portridge, corner Portridge in perimeter, named Point West Auto Park. It's so far from horse track race. Our base rent $12.98, with standard occupancy cost $2.21. It come together with overall $15.19 per square foot. You can see that showroom only around 9,764 square feet that we put air condition only. It's car auto dealership, and I have same two comparables related to auto service garage, and on second page retail big boxes. My same comparables, first auto service garage between 4,000 to 10,000 square feet, with reported rent per square foot media $13.20. And my second type of comparables, retail big boxes, 7 comparables with lease around between 5-10 years. Reported area from 15,000 to 97,000, with reported rent per square foot median $17.50. I recommended to confirm the assessed value. It's between $30.20 and $17.50, only $12.98. Our total annual rental value $259,980. I recommend it to confirm.
Thank you. Did you have any questions?
Just the one, and again, just to confirm, so for the remainder of the properties here at Point West, you haven't had the opportunity to inspect them?
No.
Thank you.
I have some of them in the past.
Sandy?
I have no questions, thank you.
Mr. Best?
Is it advantageous to be in an auto mall as compared to having a dealership on a busy street?
It's very convenient because in same spot you can have different type of car. It's auto park, auto mall. It's good location and keep all different type of car dealership together. It's great advantage.
Thank you, that's all my questions.
Okay, and I have no questions. Mr. Smith, would you like to proceed?
Sure. Just very quickly. So just to refer back to one earlier point and to clarify things a little bit further, 2537 Pembina Highway, as discussed, the Subaru dealership and the lease that is shown for that. And I can't stress this enough. I have had the discussion with the ownership representatives of the family that I know, and I have confirmed the details that I'm telling you. When you come into a market to purchase a dealership, those dealership rights are controlled essentially by that operator. So if you want to come in and do put a dealership in, you can't just come in and set up shop anywhere. You have to either have areas broken down further by those brands and get a new dealership assigned, which is unlikely at this point in our markets, or you have to buy existing ones, and those dealerships are controlled by those owners. So if you come in, you're at a disadvantage and you have to buy for it. So it's not that Mr. Passon is not a good business operator, he certainly is, but the structure of it is such that you are at the mercy of the dealers, and if they choose to sell to you, and if they did, they have to profit from it, and this is how they profit from it. So, just further explanation to that. So, moving into the valuation itself for these properties, again, we're looking at the Point West Auto Park for all of the remainder of the properties. Yes, the Birchwood group decided to be the pioneers and set up an automotive park on the west side of the city. They bought this location as they had enough land available at this site. Within the city, there wasn't enough land that was available to do all of their dealerships in one location. So they bought as close as they could, but they were on the west side of the perimeter highway, just immediately inside the Headingley RM boundaries, essentially, where they're sitting there. So they're an island, aside from the fact that you have to the north of them the horse race track, Singboy Downs. In more recent times, you have Red River X that goes out there for their events during the summer on their site. But that is essentially it. You have some hotels that have developed further west on the south side of Portage Avenue, but there is no surrounding retail to drive you to go there. If you go there, you're going there to look at cars, and that's it. And you have to drive a considerable distance to this site in comparison to, say, dealers on a strip such as Regent, or the dealers that are located on Portage or McPhillips, or the other auto park at Waverly, all within the city boundaries. We're here on the western edge, so there's significant penalty involved with driving that far if there are other options. I won't say that there is no benefit to locating together. Obviously, there are. That's why these places were developed in the first place. But we're looking at the real estate value and what one would rent those places for. So all of that gets taken into account, and location has an awful lot to do with that. And Point West is at a disadvantage in that regard, with regard to other locations. There's a couple of points I'm going to make here up front that are specific to Point West that I will indicate. That's not the one. The first being within the Point West Auto Park. The original zoning agreement with the City of Winnipeg restricted use to automotive sales and automotive servicing within the park. In addition to that, the condo declaration for the park as a whole, as it's set up under condominium real estate ownership holding. The condominium declaration itself specifically restricts use to automotive use, and those uses are outlined within my document here, and specifically no other uses. So you can use these locations to sell automobiles, you can use it to service automobiles. You can't use it to have any retail use beyond those narrow bounds. So you do not have a situation where the zoning and the structure would allow you to bring in any other retail use and put it into these facilities. Second point on that, the buildings are not designed for those uses either. So you have a showroom area up front. They're lined with offices and essentially set up for display of cars. You're not looking at ceiling heights in many instances that would be conducive to retail uses and display, etc., circulation. They're often relatively narrow. The structures themselves are very specific to the automotive sales and servicing use. So comparison to big box retail is not appropriate. So zoning and condominium declaration, you can only use it for auto. Second point, additional infrastructure costs. As a tenant, if you're going into a building, you're looking at what your overall monthly and annual costs are going to be. In the situation of the automotive dealers at the auto park, under the zoning agreement with the City of Winnipeg, the roadway and all of the other infrastructure at the auto park, which would typically be borne by City of Winnipeg if you're on a street front, is the responsibility of the condominium owners themselves, and of course, in this case, the tenants that it gets passed down to. It's all common ownership. It's one owner, and the dealers are owned by the same organization, essentially under different companies. But the point being, if you locate on Portage Avenue, you pay your operating costs for the site, and you pay your taxes, and that's it. You don't pay specifically additional money to have your roadway scraped and maintained and repaved. You don't pay for individual changing of light bulbs and maintenance of light standards. You don't pay for any infrastructure related to drainage specifically. That's paid for in your taxes. In the case of the auto park itself, you pay your taxes. But beyond that, because of the zoning agreement with the city of Winnipeg that makes all of the infrastructure at the expense of the condominium, you have to pay for all of those additional costs as well. So you're essentially paying twice in some sense for services that one would normally just receive anyway, which means that your overall cost would be higher, which would affect what you would be willing to pay for a site that's already on the edge of Winnipeg. So that's point number 2. Infrastructure costs, zoning agreement. I've already mentioned no surrounding supportive retail, and we've discussed the specific special use nature of automotive structures themselves. So we can move into the valuation of each of these, and again, I won't go through them in any detail. All of the description is there for you. You can see my photos of the individual buildings themselves. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer them. This property is the Volvo Jaguar dealership. It shares a site with the Tim Hortons, which is located on the front, which they got a special exemption for, as it had frontage on Portage Avenue, and there are no other similar sites within the auto park where one might place other retail, or indeed would be desirable by any other retail. Building was built in 2002. I don't have a land to plan area ratio for it, but if you look at my page number 7 and you look at the site plan and you follow the fence line, you can see that it's a relatively small site for the automotive dealership, which is at the top of that site with Tim Hortons along the frontage of Portage Avenue there. So it has a significantly restricted area for car storage. We're looking at a relatively small size dealership at a total of 17,111 square feet, which we take into account in our rental rates. Again, the description is there for you. If you wish to discuss the infrastructure costs, I've outlined that for you on my page number 5. And the restrictions for zoning and the condo declaration are on page number 6. The site is shown to you on page 7, as well as the location on page number 9, and we've gone through all of those details. My comparables remain the same on page number 11. Looking at valuation for the subject property, we have a newer building, 2002, than the prior hearing that we were dealing with. The ranges are shown for you there. The 2016 Board of Revision order utilized a net rental rate of $11.50 a square foot, which was my rental rate. We have increased the rent to $11.75 a square foot as representative of the property in our valuation. And that gives us annual income of $201,054. And the expenses mirror the expenses from the city and gives us our final ARV of $238,910. Open for questions.
Thank you. Questions?
Do you know ratio land plant area?
No, and the reason for that, again, if you look at page number 7, the site area itself contains the area for the Tim Hortons, which is shown at the front of the site, fronting Portage Avenue. So if you follow the fence line, you can see that it's quite a restricted area for auto storage on the actual auto dealership site. But the site isn't broken out that way, so I don't want to give you a number other than to say it's small.
We have our information that ratio land plant area 9.68.
So that would include the area that would include the Tim Hortons at the front, correct?
Yes.
And the service to access that.
came across, when this building was built,
2002.
because our records show 2004 and first lease appears in 2003.
Okay.
It's not 2002.
It was
A
originally,
restaurant was built in 2008.
if I may, it was originally constructed in 2002. It may have stretched into 2003, but that is the time frame, and I'm well aware of each of these buildings.
Yep, for sure. Are there any other businesses within Ottawa?
There is, owned by, the same company. There is, an insurance, location, automobile insurance. Makes sense, auto-related with them. And there is a, short-term auto rental location, as well, which is obviously auto-related, but that is it.
Okay, so do they sell house insurance at the insurance location? Because I'd be outside of the zoning bylaw that you're implying here today.
So I understand the point, but I would suggest that we're stretching things a little bit at this
Okay.
point.
Do you know what the Tim Hortons is paying for a market rent?
We're not dealing with Tim
Okay,
Hortons.
but I'm just, okay. Is this location in a thriving economic area, or is it in a recessive or a regressive economic area? Like when you look at development within the Headingley community and the homes that are being off Bill Roblin, off Portage, there's an urban, there's a golf course, there's a baseball stadium, there's a soccer stadium, there's a soccer complex there. To me, Headingley seems to be like a thriving economic community, and it's not in the sticks as you're trying to imply it to be in an outwardly location.
So, may I answer the
Yeah,
question now?
yeah.
Okay, so I understand your point. Sure, there's a golf course out there, that's a golf course. There's also soccer fields, there's vacant land, there's used trailer home sales, there's higher uses as well. But I think, just to encapsulate that, what I'm showing, and if you look at my page number 9 and the aerial of it, as you look at the aerial, here we have City of Winnipeg, dense development, obviously along Portage Avenue, fully developed, a lot of retail. You get to the edge where the Point West Auto Park is. You have, as I mentioned, the racetrack immediately to the north. Red River X has a paved site that has very intermittent use. And then we have no retail essentially beside that. To the south of this, we have a residential development, there's a gas station, and then there's a numerous number of hotels on the south side. And we have, to the further west, there's a industrial park that's being developed, but we have essentially agricultural land to the west of the subject, which is what I was pointing out.
Okay. Is there not talk of an urban reserve and retail complexes being built out in this area?
There's lots of talk, but that would be post-reference and
Yeah, okay.
any future, and it always remains to be seen whether these things transpire.
Is this concept, this auto mall concept, something unique, or is it something that's across North America, just to the Winnipeg area?
It would be across North America, yes.
Okay. No other questions?
Thank you. Sandy?
I have no questions.
Mr. Bass?
A question on your comparables on page 11, 13, 14, 15, and 16 with our auto dealers.
Mhm.
They're all older leases from 08, 09.
Correct.
In your opinion, have lease rates have increased from 09 to, and we're dealing with 2016?
I think things will have advanced from that timeframe typically on an overall basis, but again, we have to look at site specific. So in the case of the prior hearing, you have to look at the building and the location. We're now in the auto mall, which has its advantages, of course. Yes, things will have advanced slightly, but, and I didn't present it in my information today, which perhaps I should have, but if you look at auto sales between the prior 2016 cycle, realty cycle, and realty and business cycle, and the 2018 cycle, sales were flatlined. In fact, they decreased like 100 cars or something like that in the Manitoba marketplace. So we're not looking at an industry that is ramping up, and in fact, the future, as we all see in the papers, is considerably questionable going forward as to what the future of the automotive industry is and how it will work. I can very quick point. A lot of brands are moving towards having many fewer dealerships and concentrating those dealers into one larger kind of distribution center as people do their research online. So we don't need 5 dealers if we can have 2, one on each side of the city.
So maybe it will end up there will be just 2 auto malls in the city, and that will be.
It could very well be.
That would make it a desirable location.
We'd be ordering off Amazon.
Not
Anyway.
Get it delivered. That's all my questions, thank you.
Just one quick question, Mr. Smith. You are familiar personally with this auto mall? You've
I
been
am,
there.
yes.
Okay. That's all my questions, and we'll just take a brief break. Thank you. this hearing back to order.
File number 17-4872, address 20-3965 Portridge Avenue. Business ID 50693. Business name Birchwood Chevrolet GMC Truck Store. The access annual rental value 141,000. Total area of premise 9,113 square feet. The overall rental value $15.47 per square foot. Portridge, this premise located in Point West Auto Park. It's a car dealership. I have two types of comparables: auto service related, and retail big boxes related. Based rental value for this premise $13.30 per square foot. With standard occupancy cost $2.17. We have adjustment for air conditioning only for showroom area, $4,009. Let's go to my rent comparables.
Because the comparables are all the same.
It's
so-
all the same.
Yeah, so you don't
Okay.
have to say anything
Mhm.
else,
No.
no, we're good.
Thank you.
So my recommendation to accept assessed value.
Thank you.
I have no questions.
Thank you. Sandy?
No questions.
Russ?
No, no questions, thank you.
I have no questions. So actually, sorry, just to confirm, you yourself, Svetlana, have not been in this
No,
auto dealership at
No.
all? Okay, thank you. Mr.
but I've
Smith?
been in another dealership.
That's okay, I just want to know about the
Just not
specific
this
dealership.
specific, yeah.
Right. Mr. Smith, if you'd like to proceed?
Sure, so very quickly, Unit 20 is, used to be the Saturn dealership in the park. It's next to the Volvo Land Rover. Saturn, of course, went under back a number of years now. Birchwood is the owner of all but one of the sites within the park, including this one. They were unable to put any other major full brand into that building. Two reasons. There were no brands available. There was a down cycle in the market. But one of the main factors, in fact, the main factor, is the size of the building. We're looking at 9,113 square feet in total for the building itself. Automobile dealerships are typically now 25,000 square feet and above, usually 30,000 square feet and above. So 9,000 square feet does not fit the mold for any brand these days. The solution to that for them was to turn it into a truck center. So they sell GMC trucks out of that location. They could have put in a used car dealership specifically, but each of their dealerships sell used cars as well. So they were lucky enough to be able to put in a truck center to sell out of there. Now, the building itself isn't conducive to modern retail. If I get you to modern auto retail, if I get you to flip to page 7, and you look at the site with the red dot on it for the building. If you look at the front of it, this is a minor point, but you can see there's 2 extensions to the building out front there. And if you look at the front of the brief itself, those used to, glass on three sides, or they were, and they were essentially displayed for one car. They would put their highest end car out there, Saturn would, for display space. They've now turned it into an entry into the building itself, so that essentially makes the building even slightly smaller. So looking at valuation, our comparables remain the same. Recognizing that modern auto dealers would not typically go into a smaller space such as this. There can be other uses, such as used cars, etc., put into smaller buildings. Typically, older, smaller centers do become used auto centers, used auto dealers. In this case, it's become a truck center. We have used a rent of $11.75 a square foot as reflective of the market for the subject. Now, what we've done overall in our valuations is the larger dealerships, based on economies of scale, obviously get a slightly lower rental rate applied to them, and the smaller dealerships get a slightly higher rental rate applied to them. So we have $11.75 per square foot applied to the subject property. The 2016 Board of Revision decision was at $11.50 a square foot, which was my rental rate as applied to the property. The expenses that we've utilized mirror the city's, and it gives us our final ARV of $126,860. And the addenda simply includes the site plan for the auto park. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions?
No questions.
Okay, was this value confirmed at Realty, or was it cut at Realty? The assessed value of this property?
In this cycle?
Oh, yeah,
It was confirmed at Realty
it was confirmed at Realty? Okay. But you're saying,
and appealed to the municipal board.
okay,
As all of them have been.
okay, no problem. So I just wanted to double check that because, well, actually, this one got a slight cut, Trevor. I think it was initially at $1,459,000, and it was cut to $1,368,000.
It was, and I'm looking at the decision, and that was based on cap rate.
Okay, so the market rate should stay the
Decision
same.
is based on NOI presented by the assessment and taxation.
Excellent, okay. Is buying a truck an impulse decision? Where location is a
Not
factor?
for most, I don't imagine.
Okay, no other questions?
Thank you. Sam?
I have no question.
Mr. Nicholas?
A question about the design. You're saying here it's not quite right, the building isn't right, but this is brand new, well, not brand new, but I mean, nearly new building, auto mall. It was laid out, designed. It's not like, they've gone down a side street and found an old building. It's hard for me to understand how it can be
Okay.
poor design.
So let's look at that then. Property was built in 2000. It was one of the first dealerships put in there, and Saturn had their red Saturn standard, and they wanted the building to look just like this, be exactly this size, and that's what they built. And back in 2000, this is the size that they were looking at. Things have changed dramatically since that time in terms of the amount of display space and service space that they want for dealerships, and this would never be built today. It would never be constructed today in today's market. So you have an obsolete building that, because we have an ownership that has all but one of the sites within the park and good relationships with auto brands, they were able to come up with a workaround and put a truck center specifically into this site. If they didn't have that, it would likely have perhaps gone, if they were unable to do it, they probably would have put in a used auto center, I suppose, and if they didn't own the site, it may have struggled or put in a used auto center, because brands just wouldn't go in there.
So Birchwood owns all but one of the sites. Do they operate all of them themselves? There's no leases in place here for any of these?
No arm's length leases.
That's all my questions. Thank you.
Madam Chairman, can I just ask one question? Sorry.
Yes.
Can you just
Yes.
tell me when did this convert from the Saturn to the truck? Sales.
So Saturn disappeared in '09?
I was just gonna say,
08, 09, that's when, you know, you have financial difficulties, and I believe that's when Saturn went under. And then they took a period of time to try and find another brand that would go in there, and ultimately they put in the truck center as a workaround.
Do you know what year that?
2010-ish likely,
Oh, okay, thank you.
yeah.
Mr. Smith, can you tell me during that time when Saturn went out of business, was this building vacant?
For the most part, yes. I imagine they may have utilized it to wash some cars and things of that nature, as they own all the other dealerships there, but there was no sales being conducted until they decided on their format for that site.
Right, so I can rephrase my question, there was no other dealership in there in
Correct.
between the demise of Saturn and the acquiring the GMC truck?
Correct.
Correct, okay. Did Saturn sell trucks?
They did not.
Thank you, that's all my questions.
May I have one question?
Sure, you'd like to redirect, yeah?
Yes, Mr. Smith, do you know if they actually tried to sell this car dealership location on the marketplace after
No.
Saturn went out?
They did not look
They-
to sell.
So it wasn't actively listed at any point?
No.
Okay, thank you.
And whenever you're ready, Svetlana.
File number 17-4873. Assessor Code 2018, address 40-3965 Portridge Avenue. Business ID 50694. Business name Birchwood Chevrolet. The total assessed rental value is 419,280. Specific premise area 29,060 square feet, with the overall rental value $14.43 per square foot. This premise located in Point West Auto Park. Base rent, our assessed base rent $12.25 per square foot, with standard occupancy cost $2.18, with showroom 13,427 square feet, because it just air conditioning standard cost applied. And I have two type of comparables for auto repair service and auto big box, retail big boxes. And our base rent between much low compared to first comparable auto related and retail. So my recommendation is confirm the assessed value.
Thank you.
No questions.
Sandy?
No questions.
Mr. Buss?
No questions.
And I have no questions. If you'd like to move on to your presentation, Mr. Smith?
Certainly. So number 40, 3965 Portage Avenue at Point West Auto Park. This is the Birchwood Chev Buick GMC dealership. It's originally built in 2000 with an addition in 2013. Total area including a small mezzanine space of 29,060 square feet. The photos for it are shown on my pages 2, 3, and 4 for you there. One thing I would point out, if you walk into a modern, more modern dealership, you're not going to see the showroom with a low T-bar acoustic tile ceiling such as this. They're just done a little bit differently, give you a better display of product, I guess, but it's not a major point. Just thought I'd illustrate that to you. You can see the interior of the shop area as well as the showroom. So our overall area, I'm not going to go through the description of the building. It's there for you, as well as the property location and site evaluation for the building. Again, we're looking at over 29,000 square feet for the subject property. It is a large auto dealer. As described on my page 12, following the same comparables, our decision at the Board of Revision for 2016 was using a rental rate of $10.50 a square foot, which was my rental rate. We have increased that for the current cycle to $10.75 a square foot without any real change in the automotive market. And that gives us our annual income of $312,395 plus expenses, which mirror the city's, gives us our final ARV of $375,680. Again, the addenda simply includes the site plan with measurements for the individual properties. And I'm open for questions. So we're at $10.75 a square foot.
Thank you. Questions?
So was the rental rate confirmed at the 2018 Realty Appeal?
It was indeed.
Thank you. No other questions?
As I pointed out at the very beginning of the hearing, we've had numerous decisions of business assessments where the original realty was confirmed and then a change was made at the Board of Revision for the business assessment appeal subsequent to that.
No other questions?
Thank you. Sandy?
No questions.
Mr. Buss?
Looking at the picture on page 7, is this an ideal land to building ratio? I don't know exactly what it is, but
It's getting a lot closer. It's 7, just over 7 to 1. So yes, it's in the neighborhood of what one would be looking for. It's a little bit smaller than ideal, but not a lot. So I don't have a quibble with the size of the site for this dealer.
that's all my questions.
And I have no questions. Thank you. Whenever you're ready.
File number 17-4903. Address 45-3965 Portridge Avenue. Business ID 30932. Business name Birchwood BMW Mini. The total rental value estimated is $374,460. Assessed premise area 25,025 square feet, with overall rental value $14.96 per square foot. It includes basic rent or $12.83 per square foot, with standard occupancy cost $2.13. Air conditioning apply only non-showroom, 8,150 square feet. My comparables much higher for auto-related and retail big boxes much higher compared to base rent $12.83 per square foot. My recommendation to confirm the assessed value.
Thank you. Questions?
I have no questions.
Sandy?
None, thank you.
Mr. Ross? I just have one quick question. Is this, because I'm also looking at the front of Mr. Smith's brief, is this BMWs and Minis or just Minis?
BMW Mini. It's business name Birchwood BMW Mini and owner Birchwood BMW Inc. It's how business name. I don't know.
We believe that they sell both vehicles, both BMWs and Little Austin Minis.
Okay, that's what, or maybe perhaps Mr. Smith could confirm that to me. 'Cause that's, okay, that was my only unusual combination. If you'd like to give us your presentation, Mr.
Certainly.
Smith.
So yes, it does have both brands. It is, Mini was the original dealer, or the one side, the original building contained Mini, and in 2015, they put on an addition on the, what would be, I guess, the northwest side, backside, for BMW in that location. So our age of the building, originally constructed in 2000, and then with the addition in 2015, is the breakdown for it. Interesting the way the mind works sometimes. McDougall Auto Sales, it's come back to me now, is what the used car dealer was at the time.
Oh, okay.
For the comparable that I had noted for you, going back to 2012 there.
Okay.
Not that that's key, but I thought I'd mention it as I remembered. The dealership itself, so again, it was roughly half the size in the beginning. They expanded it to put on the BMW dealership. And our land plan area ratio for this property is 4:1. If you look at the site plan on page number 9, you can see that on site, that essentially we're looking at 4:1 ratio there. It has limited staging for new autos and serviced autos and customers, etc. Again, 8:1 is the typical ratio that you see for new auto dealers being built these days. And I would also point out, within the Point West Auto site itself, there's no additional land to store buildings on. Each of the condominiums is fully occupied and built out, so there's no additional space on which to store cars immediately adjacent. Building itself, there is description for you. You can see the photos for it. The BMW side is newer, obviously, than the Mini side. It's a relatively straightforward showroom. pardon me, with some office. You can see the shop area at the rear with the hoists, etc., concrete block. Happy to answer any questions if you have on that front. Moving along into the valuation itself, again, keeping in mind property location, zoning restrictions, etc. No supported retail, which come into effect on what one would rent these places for. Our comparables remain the same on page number 13. Our only true arm's length rental rate is at $7.50 a square foot. For an auto dealer, it is an older building in an inferior location, so we're not suggesting this should be $7.50, but it is an indicator. Our comps that we've shown you for showroom retail are better located in southwest Winnipeg in considerably better locations. Obviously driving the rent that they receive on those spots, and the automotive comps that we provide for you give reference to what auto service would go for, unless you're looking at small, tiny little oil changes, etc., that have increased rental rates beyond what the typical range is. So, looking at the subject property, we have a building of premise area of 25,025 square feet. Significant size automotive dealer, and in keeping with our valuation of properties of this size, we're using a $10.75 per square foot net rate. Yes, one part of the building is newer. No, that does not necessarily drive greater revenue out of that location. And our final ARV, using the expenses which are the same as the city's, comes to $322,240. And I'm open for questions.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Did the Jaguar dealership have some excess land attributed to that, where the Tim Hortons was, right at the front quarter portion of it? Couldn't that be utilized for storage space? Because it's all essentially owned by the Birchwood Auto Group.
I'm happy to answer that. Merrick, I'm gonna have to come up with some questions here soon.
Well, it's just, when you make a statement, Trevor, that says one thing, I just want to
I'm
make you
joking.
accountable for it,
I
I know.
apologize, I'm being joking. We'll go on. Yes, there is a tiny little bit of land on the frontage adjacent to where the Tim Hortons is. It's unpaved, you couldn't park cars on it. Certainly not in the winter time, and in the summer it would be less than ideal, as they would get dirty and sink and get rained on. It's not really storage,
Yeah.
but it's there.
But the potential's there, right?
It is indeed there.
Yeah.
I don't know what it would cost to pave that.
Thank you, Trevor.
You're welcome.
Sandy?
I have no questions, thank you.
Mr. Buss?
So, their land to building ratio is reasonably small, 4-to-1.
Mhm.
Why did they put that addition on the building? They must have,
Well,
they were just cutting down their ratio.
so you are correct there. It does drop the ratio considerably on that site. The way it was set up previously is there was a separate roll number for the land parcel at the rear of that. And they went and developed it and put this building on there, and the roll numbers were rolled into one single roll number. Now, why did they build a BMW dealership there? Because they had both BMW and Mini operating out of 12,000, 13,000 square feet, which was not adequate to service either brand, and BMW needed more space. If you look at the market these days, there's strong demand for BMWs. I guess people have money these days or something. And they obviously are located within the auto park. That's where they're going to build the brand.
Okay. That's all my
It was
questions.
their best option.
I just want to clarify, on all of these properties at this location, we don't have any concerns about the occupancy costs?
I don't,
No, I saw that on a couple, I meant to ask you that earlier. When did that expansion take place?
2015.
And prior to that, BMW didn't have a standalone?
Not a standalone. The Mini and BMW were combined into that one location.
From the beginning, from 2002?
I don't want to say that for sure, because I didn't do their work back in 2000, but it was probably BMW to start with, and Mini came along later, I believe, was the order of businesses in that site.
Okay.
They used to have that
Mhm.
Mini displayed on the side, anyway.
So so I just want to clarify, so your thinking is
It
that
would've-
it started as the BMW
Correct.
and then the Mini was added in?
That's correct.
Okay. Yeah, I've just spent a lot of time at that,
Yeah.
on the mall, so.
As I recall, now that I think about it more, that is how it proceeded.
Okay. So,
Mini didn't come in a big way to North America until later on.
right. Has suddenly become very flashy.
After the Italian job came out, then the sales went through the roof.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely, it's a fashion statement, in my opinion. Mr. Buss?
Is that a real car hanging on the side of the building?
I can't confirm or deny whether it has an engine in it.
That's all my questions.
Thank you.
Sorry, what was this, I just wanted to redirect to this expansion. It happened in 2015, and do you know the square footage that was added on?
I did not bring that today. It was slightly more than half. So our total is 25,025 square feet, and if you look at the site plan, it's a little bit more than half of the overall building, so you'd probably be looking at, say, call it 15,000 for the new one and the balance for the old one. I should have brought the original building size, but I did not.
Okay. Was the realty confirmed on this property?
The realty was confirmed and appealed to the municipal board.
And we'll move on. And whenever you're ready. slide on.
Our file number 17-4904, address 50-3965 Portridge Avenue, business assessment ID 30933, business name Birchwood Infinity Nissan. The total rental value $398,940. Assessed premise area 27,414 square feet. The overall rental value $14.55 per square foot. It's located in Birch Point West Auto Park. Base rent $12.40 per square foot, with standard occupancy cost $2.15. Air conditioning apply only for showroom area, 10,526 square feet. Rent comparables for auto related median $13.20 and retail big boxes related $17.50. The subject rent is very reasonable and below my comparables. My recommendation to confirm the assessed value.
Thank you. Questions?
Should I have any questions, Mr.
No, no, if you want to, Trevor, but we're mindful of the parking of Ms. Clark's parking dilemma, so I'll defer all questions moving forward.
I will defer.
Questions?
So,
Mr. Buss? And I have no questions. Mr. Smith, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. So Unit 50 at the auto park is the Birchwood Nissan Infinity site. The land plan area ratio for this site is 3.5 to 1. It's certainly on the lower end, not nearly enough exterior storage or circulation area and parking for customers. The building itself was originally built in 2001. It has had a smaller addition, had an addition built within the last 5 years to add on to it. Don't have the specific date for that, but it wasn't like the past one where they more than doubled the size of it. I'll draw your attention to my page number 1. So I've been representing Birchwood on their dealerships since 2009, and I'll just I should have pointed this out earlier, but I've given you the history of business assessments or realty assessments, business in this case, for each of these sites going backwards unless the roll number changed if they grew in size, etc. So you can see that the history of the decisions for the subject property. I apologize, I didn't have the 2014 information available for this one. In 2016, based on a $10.50 per square foot net rent, the decision was $343,000.80 as the ARV for the subject property. Our ARV that we're requesting today is in line with that and is an increase at $353,720. We have increased our rental rate from $10.50 to $10.75 to reflect an appropriate rental rate for the subject. Again, the prior decision in 2016 was at $10.50 a square foot. That wasn't disputed by the city. We've increased that for this cycle to $10.75. And we are looking at a large property at 27,414 square feet again, portion of that being showroom and a larger portion of that being vehicle service at the rear of the building. So you need to look at the balance for that as well. We're not dealing with full automotive sales or full sales for that entire area. So our total ARV comes to $353,720, and I'm open for questions.
Thank you. Svetlana? Questions?
where did you get land area ratio? Because our record showed different.
So if you look at the very last page of my brief, you can see the survey for the auto park, and the area for subject property is the 1.98 acres as shown matching the site there. And then we have the main floor area divided into that, gives you the land to plan ratio.
It's just that our records showed 106,976,000 square feet. So we should just want to fix that for later on.
I did notice that there was some discrepancies actually
Yeah.
in the site size.
Okay.
So you might want to check that on your end.
Okay. Thank you. That's all the questions that we have.
Thank you. Sandy?
No questions.
Mr. Voss?
No questions.
I just have one question. This is also confirmed, the realty side?
Confirmed and appealed to the municipal board. As most auto dealerships have been in this cycle. Virtually all, I think.
I do have a question.
Oh, absolutely.
Sure.
Is this building original size, or has it been added to?
It did have an addition, a smaller addition within the last 5 years. I don't have the size of that, but it wasn't like the last one where they more than doubled it.
Okay, thank you.
And we'll move on to the next one.
Okay. Our new file, 17-4870, address 70-3965 Portridge Avenue, business assessment ID 50698. It's business name Birchwood Lexus Toyota. The assessed annual rental value 480,780. Assessed area 32,903 square feet, with the overall rental value $14.61 per square foot. It's located in Point West Auto Park, with our assessed base rental value $12.44 per square foot. This occupancy cost $2.70. We assess air conditioning area only for showroom 40,561 square feet. The subject rent is very reasonable in below my comparables. My recommendation to accept the rental value.
Thank you. Questions?
I have no questions.
Sandy?
No questions.
Mr. Voss?
No questions, Madam Chair.
And I have no questions. If you'd like to proceed, Mr. Smith.
Certainly. So Unit 70 at the Point West Auto Park is the Woodhaven Toyota Lexus dealership. It was originally built in 2004. And the only change since that time, I believe they added on 2 quick service bays to bring cars in on the north end of the building. So it has changed extremely minimally, other than any branding changes that they've done to the building in that time. Our land to plan area ratio for this property is just over 6.5 to 1. So again, getting closer to the minimum that you want for modern auto dealers, but still not there. Starting at 8 typically when they're built these days. The photos are shown on page numbers 2 and 3 with description following that if you wish. I will point out The 2016 assessment was reduced to $412,380 based on a rental rate of $10.50 a square foot, which was our recommendation. For this cycle, we're at $425,160 based on an increased rent of $10.75, considerably under the $480,780 that the city is requesting. The overall premise area of 32,903 is as shown. Our comparables remain the same. We're looking at certainly a larger dealer at nearly 33,000 square feet. Again, given economies of scale, age, etc., we're looking at a net rental rate of $10.75 a square foot, which is an increase from the prior cycle of $10.50 a square foot. Including the estimated expenses, which we don't dispute, we come to a rounded ARV of $425,160.
Thank you. Questions?
No questions, thank you.
Sandy?
No questions.
Mr. Best?
No questions.
My only question, once again, was the realty confirmed?
It was confirmed and appealed to the municipal board.
And whenever you're... Whenever you're ready.
File number 17-4867, address 75-3965 Boardroom Avenue, business ID 50699, business name Birchwood Honda West. The assessed annual rental value $352,080. Assessed premise area 24,159 square feet, with the overall rental value $14.57 per square foot. It includes base rent of $12.41 in occupancy cost. We apply air conditioning only for showroom, that area 10,052 square feet. My comparables for auto service and retail big boxes show the subject rent is very reasonable and below my comparables. My recommendation to accept the assessed value.
Thank you. Any questions?
No questions.
Sandy?
No questions.
Mr. Best?
No questions, thank you.
I have no questions. Mr. Smith, the floor is yours.
Certainly. So, Unit 75 is Birchwood Honda West at the Point West Auto Park. Originally built in 1999. It was one of the first buildings built there. There was an addition in 2009 pardon me, an additional amount of space onto the original building. The overall premise area that we're dealing with is 24,159 square feet. Again, modern dealerships are roughly 25,000 and up, so it is in that range. It is a significant sized dealership. And obviously they added on to it to bring it up to modern modern scale standards. The land plan area ratio here is 3.73 to 1. Decision in the last cycle based on 1050 rental rate was $302,580. Based on my 1050 rental rate, we're asking for $311,970 based on a rental rate increase to $10.75 per square foot. Again, with the market for product being flat between the two cycles. The photos of the building are there for you. Again, 3.73 to 1, very restricted external storage for product display, storage of repaired vehicles, customer parking. If you go out to Point West and look to pull in and park your car to go in and look at product, you will often find that you have to hunt for a parking space because there isn't one available, and you have to park on the road around the corner or something on the internal roadway. The valuation of the property, as I mentioned, we have a significant size building here of 24,159 square feet. In the modern range, that would be a bigger auto dealer. Again, our rental rate for these is $10.75 a square foot, which is an increase over the prior cycle based on flat sales during that time frame. Adding in the expenses gives us an overall ARV of $311,970. I'm open for questions.
Thank you.
Sorry, Trevor, one question.
Yes.
I thought I had heard the cutoff was 25,000 square feet for the difference in rental rates between the 1075 and 1175. Is that correct?
Well, there's no specific cutoff. I didn't mention 25,000.
No, are you sure? Because I thought I heard that. Because I know, or maybe in past dealings that we've had together.
Roughly 25,000 and up. So yes, you are correct. It's in that range. It's not a hard and fast rule, and we're looking at 24,159.
So if the square footage was 23,500, would you call that a large car dealership?
No, I probably wouldn't at that point.
No other questions, thank you.
Thank you. Sandy?
No questions.
Mr. Buck? Once again, Gail will confirm.
Confirmed and appealed to the board.
And the last one.
File number 17-4865. Address 100-3965 Portridge Avenue. Business assessment ID 50696. Business name Birchwood IKEA West, Kia West. The assessed annual rental value $436,380. Assessed premise area 30,144 square feet. That brings the overall rental value $14.48 per square foot. It includes base rental value $12.27 per square foot, plus the standard occupancy cost $2.21. The assessed standard occupancy cost for air conditioning only showroom, that is $60,682. This premise located in Point West Auto Park, My comparable for auto service with medium $30.20 and retail big boxes with media rental $70.45 showed that our base rent of $12.27 per square foot is very reasonable and below my comparables. My recommendation to accept the assessed value.
Thank you. Questions?
No questions.
Sandy?
No questions.
Mr. Best?
None, thank you.
And I have none. Floor is yours, Mr. Smith.
Okay, Unit 100 is the Birchwood Kia dealership. It was formerly a GMC during the 2008 to 2010 timeframe when there was economic downturn and reorganization of many of these brands. GMC made the decision to only have one GM dealership within Point West Auto Park, and there were already two, this being one of them. The decision was made that the GM dealership would go to the other site, Unit 40, I believe it is. And so a new use had to be made for this building, and they had a period of time where they didn't have a specific brand in here. They were selling, I believe they had some higher end used cars that they displayed in that space for a while, and they obviously made use of the site, but it wasn't specifically in use as a dealer. It took them a while to get Kia on board, and ultimately they did, and they went in with some obviously signage and some internal changes to the building for them. So moving on, valuation, we're looking at over 30,000 square feet here. Significant sized auto dealer, original building built in 1999-2000. You can see the history of appeals on the property, in which we were successful over all of the last cycles, which generally holds true for the others. Their 2016 appeal was based on a net rent of $10.50 a square foot, reduced to $378,780. We've increased the rent to $10.75 a square foot in a flat market to $10.75, giving us our final ARV of $390,260. Our land to plan area ratio, again, is under what you're looking for a modern dealership, but 6.8 essentially for this site. It's not as bad as 3, not as good as 10. So we're under where one would want to be if one were constructing a new building. So the site itself is shown on page number 8, I believe. You can see the layout there. All of the other points that I've discussed previously hold true. Our comparables remain the same. Just as we're on the last one, I will point out that what I've done in framing a fair rental rate for these is include showroom type space in better locations. So Keniston, that southwest area, newer buildings, 2008, 2012, 2015, showroom type space, smaller areas, obviously somewhat greater rental rates, but in the range of what we're discussing. What we have is that type of space with office, with auto service at the back. So overall, you have to look at what would the rental rate be for something, for a specific use like that would be appropriate, where you don't have a lot of market rents to compare it to. So if we're looking at Keniston and McGilvery area, 1290 Keniston, 400 Fort White Way, 996 Lorimer. These are better locations. Their rents For smaller spaces are obviously slightly higher, but that again is typically a retail space. And then we have our auto comps following that to blend in with that to give you an overall picture of what one would rent this space for. So our overall rent of $10.75 with the expenses gives us an ARV of $390,000, $260. I will leave it there. I'm open for questions.
Thank you. Any questions?
No question.
Sandy?
Well, I'm just interested about the question that was asked last time about dealerships over 25,000 square feet, because I haven't heard that before. So this is a very large dealership, but you're saying it's still, the rental rate would still be the same as the others?
We didn't really make a distinction above that level. I mean, you get some dealerships that are closer to 40,000 square feet, but we didn't break it down even further than that. I suppose you could, but there's no market evidence to show that. So it's more showing smaller dealerships versus larger dealerships. And in some ways, the smaller dealerships, so 9,000 square feet, it's not truly reflective because you would struggle to put a brand in there. But because of the size of it and for consistency's sake, we've gone with higher rent on the smaller buildings.
Thank you.
Mr. West?
Looking at the picture on page 8, there seems to be a fair bit of room on that lot, and the ratio is 6.77. And you're saying that ideally you would like 10-1?
No, I'm saying the modern dealerships, if you're talking with the brands, they want you to have above 8-1 as a land to plan area ratio. What I was saying is that 6.8 is, it's not 3, but it's not 10. It's not ideal, but it's not as bad as some of the other ones that we reviewed.
Because even at 8, it seems to me that there'd be, but, yeah, thank you.
Our records
That's
show
all my questions.
8.54.
Okay, that's,
I know. But I'm just stating, it's a huge
Ideal
discrepancy,
ratio, 8.5.
but that's what our records show.
So if we look at the site plan at the back, you can see the square footage of the unit itself, and this is the survey sketch, so.
right. Surveys tend to be pretty accurate. Mr. Smith, I just want to ask you about, this was a former GMC before it was the Kia. So when it was built in 99, 2000, is this one of the first ones also along with the Honda?
It was, yes, 99, 2000.
So it was sort of built specifically for the GMC product.
It was at that time, yes.
And when did the GMC go vacant?
It was in that, the switch happened in that same 2008
Right.
through 2010 timeframe.
And did this building, did this building remain vacant for a period of time before the Kia dealership moved in?
It did, yes.
Do you know how long?
I do not have that information. I'd have to confirm with the ownership again.
Okay. Was this also confirmed at Realty?
It was confirmed at Realty and appealed to the municipal board.
And one last question, out of curiosity. When these dealerships are being valued, is there any consideration given to the actual product?
To the business? No.
You know, a Land Rover compared to a Kia dealership?
Not for Realty, no.
Okay.
It's what is the realty that we're looking at? Is it better or lesser?
Okay. Any wish for summation?
Do you have anything? No? Trevor, I won't say anything if Trevor doesn't say anything. So. Because in fairness, no, but in fairness,
yes, I
no,
agree.
because if we're going to expedite the process,
Yeah.
I want to be mindful of Sandy's need to do parking.
Absolutely.
I could just run out.
No, but still.
But-
I don't want
also-
to cut this short because
Yeah.
of
That, no,
parking.
that's fine. We would give Sandy time to do her parking.
I will limit my summation to 2 minutes, how's that?
Okay, so Mr. Merrick, you would also like to follow suit?
Sure, I'll have a summation as well. Thank you.
So-
And I'm just gonna have Mr. Merrick go
Yeah.
first.
I wrote down no thoughts, but the challenge with car dealerships is because for us to develop market rents, for us to develop cap rate studies for properties like these, you need to have an open market. There is no open market for these type of properties within the city of Winnipeg. So the challenge for the assessment department is to look at market values or market rents that are indicative of similar type properties where there is a mix of higher quality finish and lower quality finish. While I respect the comparables that Mr. Smith has brought today, I honestly don't believe they're reflective of market conditions for this type of property. We have chosen many comparables such as retail organizations that have the balance between a higher quality finish and a lower quality finish. And those comparables are indicative of the market rents that we support today. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Smith?
Certainly. So first point that just so we all remember the individual points, I'll go through it really quickly. I would just point out the very first document we looked at, we had numerous decisions before the board of revision for the 2018 realty on auto dealers. Of the ones that have been heard and actually were heard and not just referred on to the Muni board, reductions were put in place for the business assessments as shown in the document. The rental rates were reduced by the board of revision, and I believe even one panel member was the same in between realty and business. My other points, and I respect the submission by the city as well, but comparing big box retail in power centers and supportive retail environments is not the same thing as, certainly not comparable to special use automotive dealers. I won't run through that part. The restrictions that I mentioned in place at the Point West Auto Park do have an impact. You have restrictions just to automotive sale and service. You can't put any other retail in. Yes, there is a Tim Hortons there, which was difficult to get through and is only on the frontage. There is no other space in which to put retail, nor would it happen. You can't put retail into these buildings. Any tenant has the additional costs that they would have to bear on an annual basis for maintenance of infrastructure, which you don't face anywhere else, which drives your overall rental burden up on a monthly basis. And it is a destination for auto shoppers, but that's all it is. There is no other supportive retail out there to draw one to that area. So if you're going there, you're making a special trip. Not that one drops in and buys a car automatically, but it obviously has an impact on what rent could be driven. Our comps that are shown are a split between showroom retail, the smaller nature in better locations, and automotive in order to arrive at an appropriate rental rate in a market that only has one arm's length lease, which is $750, which would be inappropriate for the auto park, but appropriate for itself. Thank you.
Thank you. This hearing is open.